Making everyone happy on vacation isn't easy, but you know what is? Going to Aruba. All you have to do is walk out your door to find pristine pools, relaxing white sand beaches, and an island teeming with outdoor activities that'll put a smile on any face. You won't just feel great, you'll all feel great, filled with a calmer, more peaceful vibe that radiates Aruba's warmth. And the best part is, it never fades. That's the Aruba effect. Plan your family trip at aruba.com.
What does an 18-year veteran of the tech industry and a 20-year veteran of the military have in common? More than you might think. Welcome, everyone, to the Second Act Podcast, leveling up your life's journey. Welcome back to the Second Act Podcast with Michael and John. I cannot believe it. We have another guest on our show today. Super exciting. But before we get into that, John, how is your day going?
Man, it's good, Michael. I think you're going to have to stop saying I can't believe that we've got another guest on because we are locking on some amazing guests, and this is not going to be any different, and it's going to be pretty exciting. But I'm doing good, man. I think we're in our groove. We have found some super quality guests, and the stories continue to be amazing. And man, it's just high caliber, at least what I think and what you think. Well, we'll get some feedback from audience members. Maybe it won't be so high caliber, but man, it's good. Things are good. Today's good. Phenomenal weekend. Getting some snow in and getting some snowboarding in with the family. So try and take some quality family time and get that in. So
awesome. Yes, we this recently here in Colorado, we're forecasted to get a half an inch or so, and it wound up being 5 or 6 inches of heavier, stickier snow. So that was fun to shovel out of the driveway. But yeah, it did give me a little bit of a workout I wasn't expecting. So that's the silver lining to all that.
Yes.
But yeah, our guests, it's mind-boggling to me, the folks who are willing to come on with such different backgrounds and experiences and share their stories. Yeah. And it's just been so much fun getting to know folks and building connection in a really interesting way. I mean, I feel like the folks we've talked to for an hour-ish or so, I have a stronger connection with than some of the folks I've worked with for many years. Connecting on a personal level and then having similar sort of life experiences in what we're doing on our second or third or 20th acts, whatever they may be.
Yeah. And what I love about this show especially is you're from tech background. I'm from the military background, but we are capturing so many people on such a diverse playing field of all sectors and all specialties and so many different stories that I'm really excited that we're not pigeonholed to just what we know, but we're catching so many people in different fields. So with that, Michael, why don't you introduce today's guest?
Happy to. In this episode, we are excited to be joined by none other than Erik Thompson, a Vermont-based clinical psychologist turned executive leadership coach who has had the privilege of working with some of the world's most outstanding entrepreneurs, corporate executives, and thought leaders over the last 20 years. Erik also moonlights as the executive director of the Vermont Center for Family Studies, as well as hosts 2 of his own podcasts. One is called Leader Sight, and the other one is called To Honor and Cherish. Erik is a faithful practitioner of meditation, which we've had many conversations about. He is part of the reason why I started practicing meditation, not quite as faithfully as he does, but got into it, and believes his next chapter in life will involve spending more time on spiritual development and creative writing. Outside of work, Erik is an avid basketball fan. We'll have to talk about who the GOAT is, and enjoys spending time with his wife and 4 daughters doing all the great outdoor things Vermont has to offer. Welcome to the show, Erik.
Thank you, Michael.
Yeah,
and John. Great to be here.
Yeah. Well, I want to know right off the bat, greatest basketball player ever. Go.
This is LeBron.
Oh, no. All right. There's such a showdown.
That will end our show today. Great talking.
Look, guys, I watched a lot of Jordan. Jordan's freaking unbelievable. The ability to simply win. Michael Jordan. However, I believe that if you put LeBron and Jordan in the same era, and they both develop along the same trajectory, LeBron would dominate because he's bigger. So go ahead, fight with me if you want, but that's what I think.
Michael Jordan, if you're listening to this right now, I want you to come on to the show and correct Mr. Erik Thompson here, because we know you're the GOAT. We know you're the greatest of all time.
That's it.
Anyway, let's
guest 100, Michael Jordan, to come on and defend himself, which he really doesn't need to do.
For anybody.
The three of us will just talk about him,
Yeah.
All right. Well, with that being said, Erik, so you are currently in Vermont.
Right.
You're there with your family. You have a successful executive leadership development program. Let's go back to the early days. Take us back to your childhood and share some of the important memories from that journey that helped shape who you are today.
That's a good one. I was lucky. I feel so fortunate that I got born into the family I did. My parents are both very good people. And I just always knew that, I just knew it. It was like right in my bones. Knew that my dad was doing good things in the world. That he was a man of integrity. My mom, very, very kind, kind of gushing with warmth, just love kids. All my siblings, we said, like, look, if mom gave you a punishment, you were just not worried at all, because you knew about 20 minutes, maybe an hour after this punishment, she would forget it and love would overwhelm, and whatever you wanted to do, she'd let you do. But we always knew mom loved us, like, just no doubt. And that's, oh man, those simple things, you can have that. Doesn't matter what socioeconomic group you're part of, what racial group, what country you live in. If you got those things, you're a fortunate person. So
absolutely.
Yeah. There were some challenges. Those two wonderful people got divorced. I remember sitting on a bus right after I'd found out that was going to happen, feeling like my whole world was shaken up, feeling depressed and worried and anxious and insecure, embarrassed. It was hard for me. Maybe some people would feel like, oh gosh, thank God they're going to end it. Not me. I didn't feel that way. I felt like something really solid had a giant crack in it. Probably one of the reasons why I'm now the executive director of the Vermont Center for Family Studies on the side, and why I bring family leadership work into all the business work that I do.
How old were you, Erik, when that happened?
I think I was like 11 or 12 when I found out that was going to happen. Yeah.
We talked about this before we started recording, and the question was brought up, what really is a second act? And it's awesome for us, for our show, because there's so much latitude to what a second act is. And as you were telling that story, I just thought, man, that right there is a second act. It's starting something brand new and getting the taste of something you've never experienced, and now here you are in the throes of a new reality. That is a second act. Starting a new job, second act. And people have third and fourth and fifth acts. So this show is not all about just one change in your life. It's about all the changes that push you down the road to success. So I appreciate you just talking about that.
Yeah, I got to watch both of my parents go on a major second act journey after that, up close and personal. And me, I'm just wired to be absolutely fascinated by people and relationships. Maybe that influenced that. I got this podcast called To Honor and Cherish. Guess what? Childhood Divorce has a podcast for, 60 years or 50 years later on that topic. So sometimes the things that hurt us become motivators and drivers and spur our passion, to make the world better. So yeah, that's a very good point, John. There's so many second acts around, right?
Yeah. We read about it in your introduction. You have two podcasts, and I may be skipping ahead, but
Yeah.
Tell us about those, Leader, Sight, and To Honor and Cherish, real quick.
Okay, Leader Sight is for my business, Thompson Leadership Development. And I have been blessed in my work with getting to be around inspiring people who lead businesses and organizations. I get to know them very well. People seem to trust me and they talk to me. So I ask, I want to know. So I get under the hood. I get to know these people, and then I get to kind of watch what they do, and I get goosebumps a lot at what I see going on in business leadership. And I just thought, you know what, this is a no-brainer. Get this inspiring person up in front of a mic and ask them a bunch of questions and let people get to know them. So that's Leader Sight. Wow. I got a great kind of little, I don't know, I got a lot of great ones in there. I love these interviews because I love these people and the wisdom they bring. And then To Honor and Cherish is, that's my little baby on the side. It's about strengthening marriages. So it's actually a 6-part. I just did this thing, six shows, and it's mostly just me going on. I'm a family psychologist. I've been completely passionate about relationship and family success my whole life. And I got background, I got knowledge, I got some geeky tech, and I tried to just share that with the world. That's Honor and Cherish.
Be careful. Michael and I started doing this, and we only thought it was going to be 7 episodes. So To Honor and Cherish may grow, but grow past 6.
It could. I could go back there, but I felt like I said what I wanted to say, John.
Yeah, I love it.
And I said some things. We talked about sex. I talked about distance in marriage. Things that I see a lot of people struggling with. But Leader Sight just keeps rolling along.
With each of those, Erik, I know what you bring to the table, having worked with you in a past life through the leadership development program that you have. But one of the more common things we hear about the increased friction in these relationships that happen to get created are the result of the pandemic and the lockdowns and the isolation and the loneliness, and then having work 24/7 in your house. So I don't know if that inspired some of what you're revealing through your own podcast, but we've certainly had guests speak to that particular event in time and how it's caused them to rethink, what's important, what success is in life, and how they want to live the rest of their life, whether they're like 29 or 59 years old.
Yeah. Or 17.
Or 17.
First, I want to say Michael Newborn, the dang good student of leadership. A very self-aware person with a passion. He's on a mission.
I agree.
So I was honored to have him in my class. Absolute delight. He made the class better that we did for his company. Second thing I want to say, Michael, I think adversity, it seems to be part of the deal down here on Earth. Whatever reason, it got structured that way. It's messy down here, To me, that aligns with my sense of there being a divine intelligence behind the whole thing. I think it's guidance. It's hard guidance, sometimes tragically painful guidance. But yeah, the pandemic was rough on my daughters and rough on a lot of parents. And I don't know if I would say that it was uniquely rough. There's a lot of rough things that go on in this world. Yeah. And I would say, if we step outside the American perspective, we are in the lucky zone of the world.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, it was rough. And what do you make of it? And how does it shape you and clarify your values and things like that,
Yeah. So let's go back a second. You described 11, 12 years old, that divorcing your family was a wake-up moment for you, a shock to you.
Yeah.
As one of the major life events that's helped influence your future direction. Were there any other moments that maybe led you into, your collegiate years, university? Take us up to the point where you decide on maybe college level and beyond?
Okay, I got one for you. So maybe the divorce influences me towards being a more empathic person, a more introspective person, maybe. I think I was kind of wired that way anyways, but maybe it pumps it up a little. Maybe it pumps up my awareness of human suffering, even in, pretty privileged Connecticut suburb where I grew up. And so I had this kind of, I had a passion for like, what's freedom look like? What's happiness? What's sustainable happiness look like? So I came out of high school with that. So I go to college and I've started to get interested in meditation and wisdom traditions and spirituality, which my wonderful family, we didn't have that much, not a lot of discussion. I didn't grow up in a church, didn't grow up in a family that discussed that kind of thing. My sister was dating this guy, Dr. Lenny Gamberg. He's now a professor of theoretical physics at Penn State. Hi, Len. And he was dating this guy. He was getting his master's degree at University of Vermont in physics, and he had gone to Maharishi International University in Fairfield, Iowa, which is a school with a very deep knowledge of meditation, transcendental meditation. And so he was like, you might want to try transcendental meditation. I tried it, and I had a spiritual awakening right away. I had a profound opening up to the transcendental aspect of myself, of reality. It blew my mind. I walked out of the place where I learned it with a feeling that my life had changed.
Wow.
And I was kind of like, okay, I just want more of that. Because I want to find whatever keys are available to freedom, to feeling, joyful, to feeling liberated from chatter in my head.
Yeah.
And so I ended up transferring from UVM to that school. And I do not regret that decision, Michael.
No, I mean, from what I know about you, yeah, you've been very faithful to the practice of transcendental meditation for decades now, correct?
40 years, yeah.
It's
without trying.
Yeah.
Without, it's not because I'm disciplined, by the way. I am disciplined, but not like about that kind of thing. It's just so good. It's so easy.
I just want to point out that the differences between you and I at 20 years old and 22. Man, I'll tell you, Erik, I was just trying to figure out how to turn C's into B's. And, I thought at one point inviting my English teacher out to go see Finding Forrester would give me a B- at least until she shot me down. But, your story, you seem incredibly self-aware and incredibly observant of what's going on and who you are and kind of your past life. It blows me away that you would be so young and yet be so ready to find answers to life.
I think you're right that I was adventurous, and I don't know where that came from. I also think that, John, if you combine significant neurosis with a lot of passion, you get adventurous. I really wanted to suffer less.
Yeah.
I did. I wanted to be less insecure.
What was bringing on that insecurity?
Every model will give you a different answer to that. I had a lot of privilege. My parents were pretty good. I had this divorce, but people go through worse things than that. I don't know. You know what I think it could be? I'm alive there in the 80s, and there's a lot of confusion in America. There's a lot of insecurity in America, a lot of self-doubt. We are the most secure, rich country that's probably ever existed that we know of. But we kind of have a lot of chatter in our heads. I don't know if we're the happiest country ever, John. Right. I don't think we are.
Oh, I would.
So I think maybe I was a little bit like a high quality radio antenna, just picking up the vibe.
Wow.
Maybe a little too loud too, John. The volume was up a little too high.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Absolutely.
I was feeling it. I was not a happy-go-lucky dude in high school. Nope.
But you can't, the sort of, other than the events occurring during the 80s and the confusion, there was nothing sort of personally that happened to you that caused that. But you were self-aware, to John's point, and observant enough that you're like, hey, I'm going to check out this Maharishi International University and find spirituality through meditation, and then go on to graduate from the California Institute of Integral Studies. How do you go from, learning transcendental meditation, to moving into the California Institute of Integral Studies?
Right.
Tell us about that part of your novel here, your life novel.
I gotta tell you, people should do this more often. This is great. I love being asked these questions. All right, Michael. So
I'm hanging on by a thread, by the way. You guys are using a lot of big words, and I was a Marine, so you got to speak California
Integral. I get too many syllables in my resume. So
speak a little slower.
Well, out of these transcendental experiences that the meditation helped me to have, and experiences of a lot of peacefulness and stuff, there was kind of like, that's where poems come from. So I was writing a lot of poems, and I was getting really into art, and I thought maybe I could make it as a poet, I mean, poets get paid pretty well, don't they, Michael?
I don't know a poet that's not a billionaire.
Man. All you do is hang out in the woods, write a few lines, and then people flock to, want to throw money at you. So naive Erik kind of thought that, and then I did a little stint of trying to be an actor. And then I was like, what? This was hard. I was like a little bit of a crisis. Like the world whacked me and said, no, Erik, if you actually want to pay your rent, you're going to have to figure something out here.
And
you're not talented enough. No one has discovered you. And that was kind of a hard time, but I said, this growth thing fascinated with people. I could become a psychologist. I could become a counselor. I love talking to people. I love these kinds of conversations. So that was like, that would be practical. And this place, California Institute of Integral Studies,
Thank you.
was there, and I found it in San Francisco, and they had kind of a spiritual integration into an accredited counseling program.
Okay.
So I jumped on that and got my accreditation that I needed to go on and get a psychologist license.
Wow.
And went down the road of being a clinical psychologist for 15 years.
Okay.
And studying family psychology like a madman.
I want to ask, Erik, as you obviously being very self-aware as a young adult, and you get into these...
too much so, John.
Yeah, and you get into these studies, are you becoming more aware of yourself? Is asking these questions and getting in front of people, is that making you more reflective of who you are? Or are you starting to turn that superpower of yours outwards to help other people?
I think, it was both all the way. I mean, I was kind of a guy my friends would confide in. I'm a pastoral person. I want to help people. I like helping people. It's just in me. So I was always doing that. And then, I think I was able to, lend a hand in my clinical life and still do. And that's very important to me. But you ask a good question, you learn more about yourself through that. And Woody Allen has a great joke. Who would want to become a psychologist? Well, somebody who wants to spend 40 hours a week in therapy. So, a lot of self-awareness on that journey. I mean, the training involves studying yourself. All of my best training, my mentors are all like, you study yourself, dude. Study what you're doing in relationships. Study your own emotional reactivity. Study, your strengths and weaknesses. Study your accountability, your extreme ownership in the game you're in right now.
Yeah.
If something's going wrong, look in the mirror, dude. I got well trained in that by a lot of mentors. Had some amazing mentors.
And Erik, for our audience, and including myself, a lot of people will mix up psychiatry and psychology. Can you just very briefly differentiate the two for our audience?
Sure. The real simple is that a psychiatrist has an MD and can prescribe medications.
Okay.
Psychiatrists get a lot of the same training as psychologists, but they get more training on that part, on like psychobiology. Psychologists don't have that training.
Okay. So their treatment approach, where they're trying to uncover and help people, is slightly different. It's maybe seeing a nutritionist versus a medical doctor and prescribing things for your physical health. Would it be?
Something like that. I mean, psychiatrists vary, they're very well-trained people, but they have that ability to prescribe, medications, which psychologists cannot do. It does not part of their license.
Okay. Thank you for that. I thought maybe that would be helpful for folks who are just like, hey,
that was actually just helpful for me. So thanks, Michael, for asking. Erik, I want to ask, have you seen a shift through the 80s, 90s, 2000s, now 2020, here we are 2024. Have you seen a shift in how people perceive, whether it's psychology or psychiatrists, and how they're revered?
Sure. I mean, in the 50s and 60s, it was something people would be embarrassed about to go to a counselor. Now, it's something some people would be embarrassed that they never did go to see a counselor.
Mm-hmm.
Complete flip. And psychology is infiltrated every corner of American culture. In some ways, replaced or tried to replace religion in America, I would say. Churches are struggling in a lot of parts of the country. Psychology is not struggling. Psychology brand is doing just fine.
Why is that?
And I think there's really big positives in that and maybe a few negatives.
Explain for me why that shift would occur. Specifically, you talk about churches, maybe losing attendance and people going to counselors and looking for therapy increasing. Why do you think that's occurring?
Man, that is a good question. I'll take a crack at it. So one thing I think a lot of people don't know is that America is safer than it's ever been. There's less violent crime in America by far than there was in the 70s. Check it out. Look for the academic sources. You'll find out that what I'm saying is very well supported by science. You're not going to find out about it in the news. So I think we're safer. I think we're richer. But I wonder if we're actually more worried, more confused. It's very strange. And psychology has done a good job of providing relief for that problem that I think has been rising in America through that period of time. And so naturally, and I celebrate it. I mean, we've shifted funding to psychology. It's in every school now. And people are having a place to go, and there's a lot of pluses about that. The field in general is full of compassionate people who know how to listen. But are we getting more peaceful? Are we getting more happy? I'm not sure we are. We got a ways to go on that.
Yeah.
Shipping can make or break a sale, so optimize how you ship your orders with ShipStation. They make it easy to automate and manage orders no matter how big your business grows. And they might even be able to help reduce shipping and warehouse costs. So optimize and keep up your momentum for growth with ShipStation. Sign up for your free 60-day trial now at ShipStation.com and use the code POD. That's ShipStation.com with the code POD.
This episode is brought to you by JLL. Get an insider view into the world of commercial real estate with JLL's podcast, Trends and Insights, the Future of Commercial Real Estate. Whether you're curious about making cities more sustainable, the evolution of office space, or AI opportunities, this podcast will help keep you a step ahead. Tune in for candid conversations with business leaders about the biggest trends impacting how we live, work, and play. Subscribe to Trends and Insights now at jll.com/podcast.
Well, we've got a 24/7, 365 news cycle now, which is mostly negative. So we're the outlier with the Second Act podcast, providing good news to folks and
positivity.
Positivity.
Yeah.
But I think one of the trends may be the search for truth. I think people, because of the news and the way it can exaggerate things and showcase the negative, the places of worship, some more than others, have had some bad headlines over the last decades, and people are searching for the goodness and the truth in something. And so maybe that has at least partially caused a shift in finding that truth one-on-one with a trained professional who studies the mind as we search for a way to improve the mind, body, and soul, versus historically just having faith in something and just, if you do what I say, then everything will be okay.
Yeah,
sure. I asked that question, Erik, because I go to church. My family and I are religious about going to church, but we are there every week. But we also don't have TV in our house, so there's no 24-hour news cycle, and we don't really do social media. And I've got 11 and 7-year-old who don't have phones. And so I know we're the minority. I don't have any social media except for LinkedIn and this podcast. So I know that I'm an outlier, but I ask because I feel generally at peace with where I'm at. And some of the triggers or some of the things you mentioned that I know are plaguing others, I don't deal with.
Wow.
But I know that's not the norm.
That's very special. That's a blessing. It's a blessing.
I've been called boring.
I'm always interested in meeting people, and I've got a collection of people who, it's very interesting when someone talks like that, because most people don't.
Well, I'm not much fun on a Friday night. I guarantee you that. But my wife and I have, when we sit down and talk, it's relatively introspective of us and our relationship and what's going on inside our family nucleus. So
yeah,
I like it. I like where we're at right now, but it's an interesting topic, and I think we could go on.
It is very interesting. And I'll throw one thing in is, I think a lot of us are becoming increasingly aware of the prison of the negative news cycle.
Yep.
And to live differentiated from it is one of the paths to more peace. Differentiated doesn't mean you're completely unaware of it, you're blind to it. It just means that you're very discriminating in what you know to be true and not true.
Sure.
And the vibe is not true. Some of the facts might be true. The vibe is not true. The overarching vibe.
Yep.
It's more accurate that the world is getting better. But, I just wonder, is it a symptom or a cause or both? It's definitely partly a symptom. People want this. It sells, man. They want it. Why do we want this so much? That's more towards the root of it, I think.
Yeah. Yep. Super interesting topic.
Yeah.
But Erik, I want to get back to you and you're going down this journey. And I know that at some point you pivot from clinical psychology to executive leadership development.
Right.
Talk to me about the series of events that led you to make that pivot. Because that's another act, like we were talking about earlier.
It was definitely a pivot, that one, because, and a lot of people have sort of said to me like, oh, that was kind of gutsy, but it was definitely a big pivot. I let go of a lot, but I think what I think the main driver of it was? A little bit of boredom. Yeah. I do not do well with boredom. It drives me crazy. I don't want to be bored. So I started to feel a little bored in the clinical space. I started to feel a little bit discouraged about the results that I thought were possible. Maybe I'd just done it quite a bit. Yeah. So I was starting to worry because I was like, to my wife, like, Sarah, I spent all this time getting all this training. I spent a lot of money getting all this training. I published scientific papers. I worked hard and got no money for that, What am I going to do, And she was like, as she always is like, you're going to get taken care of, guy. Something will work out. And then at some point, I got this surprise invitation to use my skill set with business executives. So I had a national network that I developed through the stuff I was just telling about. And in that network, there were people using it with businesses. So someone approached me. I didn't go approach them. And I kept getting yes, 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 do this. And part of the reason was because I was going to get paid better. But it was also probably more than that. It felt like an adventure. So I was like, here we go. I jumped in, tried this completely different thing. I'll tell you a little story. I did not grow up in a country club. My dad had a great job, but we were middle class. And I got one of my first meetings for this new gig was in a country club with a guy who founded an architecture firm that had offices all over the country. And I go into this country club and I'm like, what the hell am I doing here? I do not belong here.
The old imposter syndrome.
Oh my God.
Creeps in again.
Oh man, Michael, it was hitting me hard. I'm like speechless, Fortunately, the guy who brought me into this was in there too, and he was kind of carrying the conversation along. So here's what happened. So I'm sitting there feeling the imposter syndrome massively. And the founder owner of the place is there with his number two. He's got two number twos. They're both there. We're all there, the five of us. So they go to the bathroom, both of them, at the same time. As soon as they're out of earshot, he leans over and goes, they can't stand each other. He's like, we're all nicey nice talking, for 20 minutes or whatever. And then they go to the bathroom. They can't stand each other. And at that moment, my imposter syndrome just disappeared. Because I was like, I've been here before. Yeah. I've done couples counseling, family counseling, seen the battles between different factions in the prisons and the mental health system. I know a lot about this topic right here. So I relaxed a lot. I knew what to do, And I asked questions and guided. And that was kind of like, then it just kept going that way. It kept being true that I had something to offer. So confidence, growing. Now I'm a businessman. I'm no longer getting a paycheck. I'm eat what you kill. You got to raise your own business. That was another adventure.
Yeah.
Thank God for my wife, man. She just has a lot of faith in me and in everything, in us, in the family.
Yeah.
Here's the paradox, right? Like, so a few minutes ago, we were talking about is the general trend of the population more towards talking one-on-one with a psychologist or a psychiatrist and away from religious organizations. But here, just in the last couple of minutes, you've emphasized faith, and you're a spiritual person centered around meditation. John, a spiritual person centered around Christianity. And faith is sort of the common denominator in both. So people still have faith in something, but they want sort of the truth attached to that. And I think it has led you to be successful in what you're doing now. So you're running this successful executive leadership development program. Tell us, how with that example as the start of that practice, how that past experience from being a family psychologist helped create your distinctive approach to working with executives with that sort of very interesting first experience there.
First, I want to say I like listening to how Michael Newborn thinks. I'll always like that, right from meeting him right on the bat, and his extremely tenacious mind. So I love what you just said. I think I'm going to say two things, Michael. One, on faith. We Americans are very faithful people.
Yeah.
Faith is evolving. Maybe that's a good thing. Churches in a lot of parts of the country are in crisis. Maybe that's okay. Maybe we're learning. But we are deeply faithful people. We have very deep values. We are good people. And, just talking about my wife, I mean, that simple quality of faith is such a blessing. And so many, if you go looking for it, you'll see it all over the place. It's everywhere. It's all over your neighborhoods.
Yep.
It's all over the businesses you work in. If you look for that, you're going to see it. It's there. The tremendous values that you can see in action every day in America on the streets. Taxi cab drivers, people helping other people. We are surrounded by love. So I'll say that. And then, Michael, you wanted me to address my approach. So there's a really good body of knowledge called Family Systems. It's very positive about families. It looks at the strengths in families, and it has a lot of good information about family leadership. What does it actually look like to function as a person who makes people better around you? So that body of knowledge lit me up. I needed it. So I got into it, and it's continued to be really valuable. And what I did was I created a program for executives. Most of my work is a year-long journey with executive teams. We go on a journey together. They're the case study. And we're taking a look together at their leadership skills, and we're experimenting. We're helping people run experiments in their company, try different moves. And those experiments are guided by this model, systems leadership model, that I got lucky to land into some amazing mentors who taught it to me. And it's an extreme ownership model. So right off the bat, we established the idea that if there's something going wrong in my house or my team or my relationship with my boss, I'm always playing a role in what's going on there every single time.
Yeah.
And we help people get better at being very good sleuths to find out, what is that role I'm playing in this sin? Why is it that I don't get along with my mother? What role am I playing? Why is it that I always feel undermined by my boss? Or why is it that I am continually frustrated by my teammate who runs that other business unit? Okay, there's always a role you're playing. And if you can find that role, you've got a massive lever to drive positive change. Wow. Lead by managing yourself.
Man. I can certainly see the synergies between a well-functioning family system and a well-functioning professional system that you operate in. And, there's this whole idea of highly functioning teams getting into this flow state where it just, everything is like sort of harmoniously sort of working together almost without anything being said.
Yeah.
It's sort of a fascinating phenomenon if you've ever been a part of it or witnessed it in any kind. And, we talk often about athletes and sports teams, and you see some of the best have that harmony within their teams and just what they're able to accomplish together. It's amazing.
Yeah.
You also, let's look at the other side of that coin where they're tremendously distracted by what's going on between them. Both in families and in business teams. They get all tangled up and they're taking their eye off the ball because their eyes on each other in a negative way. So teams need help staying out of that zone or getting out of that. Go ahead, John. What were you going to say about?
I was going to take it in another direction and talk about military, special forces, and elite teams. I wasn't in what you would call an elite team, but I, coming from flying the president around, and talking elite to a lot of, special forces and the operators within it. I think some of that flow state that you talked about, Michael, comes from understanding the roles that you're in and understanding the roles that other people are going to play and trusting. We talked about faith.
Yep.
Right. I have faith in the co-pilot that I'm flying with, even if this is the first time that we've flown together, because I know the training he's gone through. I know how serious he takes his role. I know that, he was selected to be here. But take it a step further in combat special forces, those guys train together, they eat together, they live together, and now they're operating together. And they know that even though mistakes are going to be made, they know the limitations of their partners. They also know that other people are there just waiting to fill in, or that their team member is not going to quit because he didn't quit in training. He didn't quit in, when he was being brought up through the rigors of everything they had to learn. So, that, and I think that's imperative in families and, organizations that are flowing and working very effectively, is know the limitations of your spouse. You know the limitations of your vice president or your chief operating officer, but you also know that there's a team member that's willing to step in and willing to help perform those functions when that time occurs. So I what you guys are saying, it resonates, and it just excites me because I've seen it on a different level. And it's good stuff.
Well, John, to use your military experience and to use an analogy of like being in the trenches, I can name on a hand or two the people I would want in the trenches with me because I trust them 100% to get the job done with me. I know I can name the names, know who they are. They will deliver 100% every time without question. And it's when you have those people in your life, whether it's in a family situation or in a work situation or in a community situation, people you can lean on in a community to help you. It's a special thing. Yeah. It's a very special thing.
Absolutely.
And a tremendously powerful thing. I think you described that very well, John.
Yeah.
And teams struggle with this, They struggle. What I see is, what do I do when I've lost a little bit of trust in my teammate? And it's not because usually it's at the level I'm working at, it's not because they're cheating or anything. It's like, he's not a great manager. He's a good guy. He's not a good manager. What do I do? How do I handle that? How do I bring him up, or can I bring him up? Yeah.
Well, and I think that's what is so attractive. Corporations have been doing this for years, but bringing in people that have the special forces background, that have that intimate knowledge of the person they're working with on the right and left, and they just compare their training and going to battle with what corporations are doing on their battlefield. Right? It kind of opens up the aperture and helps them realize they may not be at war, but they still have to put a lot of trust in the people that they're working with. And that trust is integral to the success of that organization, because if you don't have success, whether it's from the leadership down or or the other direction or laterally, eventually those cracks are going to widen and a lot can happen. But Erik, you alluded to it, or we alluded to it in the intro, but your next chapter is going to be geared more around writing and the spiritual aspects. Open my eyes and kind of share with me what that looks like to you.
I always say it like this, John, that I've gotten to a point with my business where I feel like I've accomplished a lot of the things I wanted to accomplish. I'm pleased with the sustainability of my business, the success level of my business. I feel like my network just kept growing because I delivered value. So my network's in great shape. And I think I just have this dream now that I've always had, but it's maybe more front and center now, to try to bring more of the deepest truths that I feel like I found or had the good fortune, the blessing to be shown. And those are more spiritual. So that's a calling for me to make that more a part of my work, more a part of my work conversations, more a part of what I deliver in my pastoral journey to help people, including my clients. Yeah.
And just for our audience, we've talked about spirituality in terms of meditation and in terms of Christianity here. They're not mutually exclusive things. I know your journey is a unique one, Erik, and I think there's still many chapters left, and you just shared your upcoming chapter. You gave folks a little window into that. But for folks who are listening to our podcast or just getting started on their second act, however they want to define that, we shared a little bit about what that means to us or how we view that. What final thoughts do you want to share with them? Practical steps, any advice you want to leave them with as they set out on that journey?
I think second acts are so cool. There's so much opportunity, like the beginning of an adventure. It usually involves some worries. It involves a lot of unknown. If you go back to the old stories, the old legends, the old great, The Hobbit by Tolkien and all the other old stories, you'd find this quality of heroes who get into the unknown and they die and they have to learn a lot.
Yeah.
But there's great treasures available in the caves that you get lost in and find yourself in, and you find rings that help you in ways that you never even imagined. So I celebrate the second act.
I love it. Yeah. Get lost. Basically, you're telling people to get lost, but in a very
That's
positive way.
Yeah, get lost, bro.
Well, Erik, your conversation today, man, has helped me especially, but I think it's helped a lot of our audience dig deeper into how we think about the world and ourselves. And so I just want to thank you for adding another important dimension to the insights we share with the second act community. And I know after listening to this, people are going to get in contact with you or figure out more about you and how they can interact. But if people want to find you, what's the best way for them to do that?
My website, thompsonleadership.com, just like it sounds.
Okay. Yeah, well, we will include that link in our show notes.
Yep.
But thank you so much for giving our audience an intro and a window into the life of Erik Thompson.
Yeah, this has
I
been
love what
fun.
you're doing, and I love talking to you guys.
All right.
For sure.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, and we'll talk to everyone again next week.
Yep. See ya.
The Second Act with Michael and John stars Michael Newborn and John Ballenger. The podcast is produced by Seltzer Kings. For more information on the show, check out michaelandjohn.com, or if you'd like to get involved in the conversation, give the guys a shout on their socials at The Second Act with Michael and John on most platforms. Thanks for listening.